the unimaginable betrayal, and the whispers of a hidden legacy. There are moments in life when the ground beneath you doesn't just crack, it disintegrates, leaving you free-falling into an abyss of despair. This isn't a story about a bad day or a tough break. It's about the brutal, soul-crushing moment when everything you thought defined you, your home, your love, your lifelong trust, is ripped away, leaving you utterly naked and broken. But what if, at that absolute rock bottom, when every shred of hope seems lost, a forgotten secret from the past suddenly emerges, not just promising solace, but a colossal, life-altering fortune that most people only dream of? What if the universe, in its cruelest twist, also held the key to your ultimate redemption, waiting for your complete undoing before revealing a path to unimaginable wealth and a brand new beginning? This is the story of how my world imploded, only to be spectacularly, impossibly, and unbelievably rebuilt by a truth I never saw coming. Foundations of a Fading Dream. My name is Thomas Elridge, and for 51 years, I believed in the unwavering pillars of hard work, loyalty, and the simple beauty of a life built with my own two hands. For 3 decades, I dedicated myself to construction, the sweat of my brow and the calluses on my knuckles earning every single dollar. I started from nothing, believing that rising before dawn and collapsing into bed exhausted was the blueprint for a good, honest existence. Callie and we were inseparable teenagers, marrying when I was 21, her eyes alive with a fire that could illuminate any room. Our early days were humble yet vibrant, filled with shared dreams in a tiny Poughkeepsie apartment, secondhand furniture, and endless ambition. We were a formidable team, me taking every roofing, framing, or remodeling job I could find, while Callie worked at a diner by day and pursued her nursing studies by night. We celebrated our first tax return like lottery winners, building credit, buying a rundown house, and pouring every ounce of our combined energy into transforming it. I would labor until my fingers were raw and she would bring me cool lemonade and half sandwiches, our conversations on the front porch painting a vibrant future. I loved her with a profound and unconditional devotion. The shifting sands of success. Eventually, my efforts bore fruit. My construction crew gained a reputation for quality, securing larger projects and higher bids. A pivotal city contract transformed our fortunes from merely scraping by to enjoying substantial prosperity. It was then that I decided to surprise Callie with the mansion. A stately brick estate in Westchester County, cloaked in ivy, surrounded by towering trees like a private fortress. 5 bedrooms, a never-used wine cellar, and a sprawling garden she promised to fill with lavender. It cost $3.4 million, mostly paid in cash, the rest financed. I envisioned it as her dream home, a testament to our journey. She initially called it a real home, but with its acquisition, something subtle yet undeniable began to shift. Callie started to gravitate towards new circles, joining country club groups and charity boards. Her appearance became meticulously curated, her conversations peppered with discussions of sophisticated wine tastings, and her presence at home for dinner grew increasingly rare. I rationalized it, attributing these changes to personal growth, telling myself that people evolve, and perhaps I just needed to adjust. Still, I clung to the simpler rhythms of our life. Weekends were dedicated to my daughter Brandy, now 23, a brilliant young woman with my stubbornness and her mother's sharp wit. We'd watch movies, walk our dogs, or fish off the dock. Sundays meant bringing my mother Eileen to the mansion for dinner, even when Callie's enthusiasm waned. And then there was Hank, my best friend since I was 20, a bond forged through countless shared experiences. Building decks, hunting deer, moving furniture, and drinking beer under starlit skies. When my father passed, Hank was the rock for my mother, offering solace when words failed me. I trusted him implicitly, more than anyone, even my own brother. The unseen cracks in the foundation. I genuinely didn't perceive the insidious unraveling occurring right under my nose, or perhaps I simply refused to acknowledge it. Callie and Hank's shared activities became more frequent: charity galas, late-night planning meetings. She often claimed I was too perpetually exhausted, too consumed by work to join them. I never argued, convinced that if I just worked harder, she would somehow see the depth of my enduring love. Yet, the chasm between us widened inexorably. Our conversations withered, replaced by superficial pleasantries. The guest room became her default sanctuary more nights than not, leaving me staring at the ceiling, haunted by the memory of those simpler days on the porch, sharing sandwiches and dreams. A forgotten piece of wisdom from my eccentric Uncle Roy echoed in my mind from when I was 17. Roy, who drove a Bentley and wore cufflinks to Thanksgiving, once looked me straight in the eye and gravely advised, "Tommy, never think a roof means safety. Sometimes it just keeps the truth from falling on your head." Back then, the meaning eluded me. Now, the chilling clarity was absolute. The true collapse of our marriage wasn't a sudden dramatic explosion. It was a slow, relentless erosion, trust wearing down like riverstone. I desperately clung to the hope that she would eventually turn back, that we could salvage what remained. But in reality, she was already gone, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. All that remained was the grim formality of paperwork. Even then, the extent of her calculated cruelty remained beyond my darkest expectations. The day the sky fell, I remember it with stark clarity, a Thursday. Thursdays were my early days, a cherished ritual. I was returning from a demanding job in Syracuse, a complex deck extension crafted from custom cedar planks. My boots were caked in dried mud, my back ached, but I felt a familiar surge of anticipation, eager to surprise Callie with her favorite cannoli from that Italian bakery in White Plains. I harbored a naive hope, a foolish fantasy that perhaps we could sit outside together, talk as we once did, and rekindle a dwindling spark. As my truck rolled into the driveway, Hank's vehicle was parked near the garage. It wasn't entirely unusual. He occasionally dropped by to help with repairs or deliver game from a hunting trip. Yet, an unsettling stillness pervaded the air, an unnatural quiet that prickled my senses. I entered through the back, moving through the kitchen, when a soft, muffled laugh drifted from upstairs. Her laugh. That distinct, joyous sound she used to make when I tickled her knees, the one that crinkled the corners of her eyes. But this time, it wasn't meant for me. I didn't storm up the stairs in a rage. I didn't yell. The screaming in my gut was enough, a desperate refusal to believe what it was already confirming. Each step I took was a slow march towards an inevitable and painful truth. At the bedroom door, I heard Hank's voice, then hers again. I pushed the door open. There they were, my wife and my best friend, caught in the most intimate of betrayals. There was no flicker of shame, no rush of panic, just the suffocating quiet that descends when two people are exposed but care too little to offer an explanation. Hank scrambled to pull on his shirt, a pathetic display. Callie remained seated on the edge of the bed, her gaze fixed on me, her face devoid of any discernible emotion. Not a single trace of guilt. She calmly crossed her legs, smoothed her hair, and with a voice eerily composed, uttered, "You're early." Hank mumbled something hollow, something weak, but his words were lost in the roar of my shattered world. I turned and walked out. There was no screaming, no violent punch against the wall. I descended to the garage, collapsing onto a stack of plywood, staring blankly at the floor for what felt like an eternity. In that agonizing stillness, the pieces of the last few years clicked into place. The late nights, the manufactured smiles, her gradual withdrawal from my daughter, my mother, and from me. That night, I slept in the guest room. The cannoli remained in its pristine box on the counter, a cruel memento of a failed hope. By morning, it was in the trash, and Callie had filed for divorce. The unforgiving scales of justice. There were no drawn-out arguments, no desperate pleas, no pretense of reconciliation. Callie was done, and she intended to claim what she believed was rightfully hers, half or even more if she could extract it. I attempted civility, suggesting a quiet settlement. Her laughter was cold, laced with contempt. "You're the builder, not the brain," she scoffed. "Let the court decide." She enlisted Donovan, one of the state's most formidable and merciless divorce attorneys, a man in an impeccable suit, with pristine white teeth and eyes that held the chilling glint of a shark. He systematically dismantled my reputation in court, portraying me as emotionally unstable, prone to temper, twisting every truth until it bore no resemblance to our shared life. They painted a picture of a controlling workaholic who neglected his wife, pulling text messages out of their original context, parading two former subcontractors who had sued me years prior over a payment dispute. They even subpoenaed financial records from a particularly brutal year during the recession, attempting to suggest I had hidden assets. I sat there, the tight collar of my suit chafing my neck, watching my life meticulously shredded before an audience of strangers. Callie, impeccably dressed in black, her hair pinned elegantly, sat with crossed legs, observing the proceedings as if she were attending a fashion show rather than a courtroom where my existence was being dissected. When Brandy bravely took the stand, attempting to speak on my behalf, to articulate how her mother had fundamentally changed, Callie wouldn't even grant her daughter a glance. After 9 grueling months of hearings and legal battles, the judge delivered his ruling. The mansion was hers. Most of our savings, hers. The retirement account split. All I was left with were my tools, my truck, and the sparse rented apartment I had secured merely to have a roof over my head. The decision itself didn't surprise me. What truly shocked me was the profound, suffocating emptiness that settled within me. Not anger, not sadness, just a chilling numbness, as if I had been a mere bystander in someone else's tragic narrative. Outside the courthouse, I stood utterly alone. Hank was nowhere to be seen, likely already inside the mansion, celebrating with Callie, perhaps uncorking champagne into the very crystal glasses I had unpacked with such hopeful optimism on our moving day. Callie walked past with her lawyer, pausing only once to glance at me. Her expression was devoid of emotion, her resolve unwavering. She leaned in, her voice a chilling whisper, "You're pathetic." Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd without a backward glance. I made no move to follow, uttered not a single word. I walked to the parking garage, climbed into my truck, and gripped the steering wheel, my hands still uncontrollably trembling. I had lost everything. My wife, my best friend, my home, and the entire future I had spent 30 years painstakingly constructing. But that night, as the darkness enveloped me, everything was about to change in a way I could never have foreseen. A call from the abyss, a legacy awakened. Unable to face the sterile white walls and stale air of that solitary rented apartment, I drove north without a destination, propelled only by an overwhelming urge to escape the city, to flee from every tangible reminder of my monumental loss. Around 10 that evening, I pulled into the deserted parking lot of a diner off Route 9, killed the engine, and leaned my head back, utterly spent. The phone rang, an unknown number flashing on the screen. I let it ring twice, my initial thought a jolt of dread, perhaps the court, or worse, Callie, calling to gloat about her victory. I almost ignored it, almost hung up. But something, an inexplicable intuition, urged me to answer. A man with a calm, distinctly European accent inquired, "Is this Thomas Elridge?" I hesitated, my voice barely a whisper. "Who's asking?" The reply came, precise and measured. "This is Simon Keller with Gallon Private Banking Group, Zurich. We've been trying to reach you for several years. Are you the nephew of Roy Elridge?" My Uncle Roy. The name hadn't crossed my mind in what felt like an eternity. He was my father's older brother, the perennial eccentric in a lineage of carpenters and farmers. He wore impeccably tailored suits, smoked Cuban cigars, and carried an aura of possessing profound secrets. He would materialize every few years, hand me crisp $100 bills on my birthday, then vanish without a trace. I hadn't seen him since my 20s. Rumors whispered of him moving to Europe, amassing a fortune, then simply disappearing into the ether. I cleared my throat, the sound rough. "Yeah, Roy was my uncle. Why?" The man continued, his voice unwavering. "Mr. Elridge, you are the sole listed beneficiary to a dormant account. We are required to contact you before its automatic liquidation. The account has not been touched for 15 years. Your uncle gave specific instructions to release the funds only after a certain legal condition had been met." My heart pounded against my ribs. What condition? The response was delivered with chilling clarity. "We were to wait until you were no longer legally bound by a marriage license." The words struck me like a blast of Arctic air. I sat bolt upright, a tremor running through me. What kind of funds are we talking about? A brief pause stretched into an eternity. The account contains $47,089,421.77 as of this evening's statement. I couldn't speak. My hands began to tremble uncontrollably, and I stared at the dashboard, as if the impossible numbers might materialize there, offering concrete proof of what I had just heard. The man's voice cut through my daze. "Mr. Elridge, are you still on the line?" "Yes," I managed to croak, barely. He patiently explained that my uncle had meticulously transferred a series of off-the-books investments, private equities, old-world banking bonds, into this account over a 10-year period before effectively vanishing from the financial world. The money had grown, slowly and consistently, in a vault protected by layers of silence and legal shielding. "Why wasn't I contacted sooner?" I asked, my voice still unsteady. "Your uncle was meticulous," Simon Keller reiterated. "He did not trust your spouse. His words, not mine. He instructed us to wait until your marital status changed. He said, and I quote, 'Tommy needs to be free before he remembers who he is.'" The phrase stunned me, stirring a vague memory of Roy uttering something similar when I was a teenager, a time when I simply viewed him as a flamboyant old man with too many secrets. I remembered him taking me fishing when I was 16, his cryptic wisdom, "Money's just a mirror, kid. It'll show you what you're made of. Just make sure you know who you are when you see the reflection." I had never forgotten it, even without understanding its full implications. The banker continued, "We require your physical presence in Zurich to process final identification and paperwork. We will cover all travel and accommodation expenses. The funds can be transferred wherever you designate." I didn't immediately agree. I needed time to process, to breathe. He understood, providing a direct contact number. After the call, I remained in the dark cab of my truck, gripping the steering wheel as if it were the only solid anchor in my suddenly tumultuous life. I gazed through the windshield at the vast expanse of stars. Somewhere out there, my entire reality had irrevocably shifted. Yet, I didn't feel powerful. Instead, I felt small, disoriented, suspended between two utterly disparate lives. The very next morning, I called my mother Eileen and recounted everything. Her reaction wasn't one of effusive excitement or outright disbelief. Instead, with a quiet wisdom, she simply said, "That man always did know more than he let on. Maybe now you can finally breathe." Brandy was the next person I reached out to. She listened in silence for a long moment, then her voice, laced with both support and caution, came through the phone. "Dad, you deserve this, but please, don't let it turn you into someone you're not." With an unprecedented clarity of purpose, I booked a flight to Zurich that same afternoon. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts. I packed a modest duffel bag containing 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, my worn leather wallet, and the watch my father had given me upon my high school graduation. Everything else, every last vestige of my old life, I left behind. Callie would not be informed. She didn't deserve to know. I realized I harbored no desire for revenge, no need for the validation of a courtroom. What I truly needed was to comprehend the full scope of my uncle's final gift. Not merely the colossal sum of money, but the profound reason behind it. Something deep within me knew this was about far more than just dollars in a bank account. It was about something immeasurably deeper, a hidden narrative waiting to be unveiled. Zurich, the unveiling of a secret world. The plane touched down in Zurich on a crisp, gray Monday morning. The city unfurled before me like a meticulously curated postcard, impeccably clean, streets, ancient stone buildings exuding quiet dignity, and a pervasive elegance of sharp suits. My last international trip had been my honeymoon to Mexico, a distant memory from a lifetime ago. Now here I was, walking through a Swiss airport, an invitation from a private bank tucked into my coat pocket. A driver awaited me at arrivals, holding a discreet sign bearing my name. He greeted me with a firm handshake and a polite nod, a man of quiet efficiency. There was no small talk as he drove directly through the heart of the city, ascending a winding hill that afforded breathtaking views of Lake Zurich. The black Mercedes glided to a halt before a grand stone building, its imposing iron gates flanked by gold letters etched into the archway, Gallon Private Banking Group. Inside, the air was rich with the sophisticated scent of fine leather and fresh polish. I was escorted down a long, hushed hallway into a private office that felt less like a place of finance and more like a scholarly library. Towering mahogany bookshelves lined the walls, a massive antique globe occupied a corner, and a panoramic view of the serene lake could calm even the most agitated soul. A man in his early 60s, radiating a quiet warmth, stepped forward with a genuine smile. He introduced himself as Simon Keller, the very voice from my phone call. "Mr. Elridge, welcome," he said, his voice resonating with sincerity. "We've been waiting a long time for you." He poured me a rich, dark coffee, then handed me a thick, leather-bound folder and began to meticulously explain everything. Uncle Roy, it turned out, hadn't merely vanished. He had orchestrated a deliberate and systematic removal of himself from the entire American financial system. He had liquidated his investments, sold all his properties, and shrewdly moved his entire capital into an intricate trust, protected by multiple foreign jurisdictions. He had expertly utilized shell companies, old-world banking channels, and insider banking codes. A labyrinthine but entirely legal maneuver, executed with absolute privacy. The folder contained not just documents, but real handwritten letters from Roy, addressed specifically to me, held in escrow until my divorce was formally finalized. In the very first letter, Roy's distinctive script read, "Tommy, I know this won't make sense right away, but I've watched you from a distance. I saw how hard you worked. I saw the kind of man you became. I always wanted to leave you something. Not just money, but freedom. I couldn't give it to you while you were married to that woman. I'm sorry, but I never trusted her. I saw through her long before you did." Another letter contained a poignant journal entry, penned years earlier, when I was just a boy. "Tommy builds with his hands. He thinks with his heart. He'll be a better man than I ever was." I had to stop reading, my vision blurring through a sudden rush of tears. For so many years, I had been convinced that Roy had simply forgotten about us, that he was too absorbed in his mysterious world. It turns out he had been planning something profound, something specifically for me, all along. Simon then calmly slid a final document across the polished table. It authorized the full release of all funds into any account I designated. He detailed the total assets, which included substantial stock portfolios, significant gold holdings, and even a private villa nestled in the south of France, now legally mine. My hands, still trembling, signed the papers. Just like that, my life changed again, irrevocably. But it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about what came next. Reclaiming a life, forging a legacy. The flight home was profoundly different. I was no longer the same broken man who had departed. The bitter sting of the divorce hadn't entirely vanished, but a fundamental shift had occurred deep within me. I felt grounded again, not because I now possessed millions, but because I finally comprehended that I hadn't truly lost everything. Instead, I had simply been stripped bare, revealing the authentic self beneath the layers of expectation and heartache. The very first call I made upon landing was to Brandy. I recounted the entire incredible saga. She asked for nothing, simply expressing, "Dad, does this mean you're coming back home?" I assured her yes, but that home would no longer be that sterile, empty apartment, and certainly not the mansion my ex-wife now inhabited with my ex-best friend. I found a ranch house just outside Nashville, a property with open land, a welcoming wraparound porch, and ample space for Brandy to visit whenever her heart desired. I threw myself into its renovation, installing windows, laying flooring, building the deck, every single nail driven with a renewed sense of purpose. A week later, Callie discovered my newfound fortune. She called. I let it ring. She called again. This time, I answered. "Tom," she said, her voice softer, more vulnerable than I had heard in years. "I made a mistake. I never stopped loving you. I was angry and confused. We could try again." I allowed her to speak, letting her words hang in the air. Then I replied, my voice calm but resolute, "You didn't love me when I had everything. You loved what I gave you. Now you want back in because I'm worth more on paper. I'm not the same man you walked away from." She began to cry, but I waited patiently. Then I added, "I forgive you, Callie, but I'll never forget what you said to me outside that courtroom, and I'll never be yours again." I hung up. Hank attempted to call too, leaving a message. "Tom, man to man, I messed up. Things got complicated. I should have been honest." I deleted the message without listening to the rest. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need revenge. What I needed and what I found was peace, the quiet wisdom of a rebuilt existence. The most profound gift my uncle left me wasn't denominated in Swiss francs or property deeds. It was the truth. He possessed a clarity of vision that I, blinded by my own life, couldn't see. He provided me with the means to rebuild not merely a new house or a replenished bank account, but a life that was unequivocally mine once more. And this time, I vowed not to squander a single moment of it. Most mornings, I still rise before the sun, old habits proving resilient. But now, instead of rushing out the door in work boots, thermos of black coffee in hand, I sit on the porch of my new home, embracing the profound stillness. This house is far from flashy. It's a ranch-style abode with a long gravel driveway, an ancient oak standing sentinel, and a creaky porch swing I built with my own hands. I have no need for marble floors or million-dollar chandeliers. All I truly require is honesty, a profound sense of peace, and the kind of silence that comes unburdened by guilt or shame. Brandy visits frequently. She brings her guitar, sitting on the porch edge, strumming melodies while I grill steaks or simply sip coffee. She shares her life, her evolving goals, her dream of opening a small cafe. I offered her the financial means to start it, but she steadfastly insisted on earning it herself. That unwavering determination tells me she will undoubtedly succeed. She possesses an inner fire, steady and strong, embodying the best qualities of both her parents, my grit and her mother's focused ambition. My only hope is that she learns to love more wisely than we did. My mother, Eileen, steadfastly remains in the house where I grew up. She refuses to move, even when I offered to buy her a new place. "I have everything I need right here," she always says. I understand it now. You don't always need to upgrade to move forward. Sometimes simply standing still in the right place is enough. Callie never called again. Hank never appeared at my door. The life they chose is theirs to carry. I harbor no ill will or wish them pain, but I no longer carry any part of their tumultuous story on my back. I've spent the past few months learning to savor stillness, to appreciate the quiet rhythms of life. I adopted a dog, a gentle shepherd mix I named Boone, who faithfully follows me everywhere. I even joined a local veterans group, though I never served, simply to volunteer and offer a helping hand. I find profound satisfaction in building things for those who need them. Ramps, decks, benches for parks. It serves as a powerful reminder that the work of your hands still holds intrinsic value, regardless of the magnitude of your bank account. I also made a significant decision. I allocated a portion of my unexpected fortune to establish a foundation, the Elridge Grant, specifically designed to help single fathers who are rebuilding their lives after divorce. I vividly recall those nights sleeping in my truck, adrift and uncertain, feeling utterly abandoned by the world. No man should ever endure that desolate feeling of being truly alone. If I can assist even one of them in getting back on their feet, then perhaps all of this, everything I lost and everything I gained, will carry a deeper, more meaningful purpose. The unbreakable core within. The greatest, most enduring lesson I have learned is this: your true worth is not measured by what you lose, nor by what you own. It is profoundly measured by what you can courageously rebuild when everything else has been stripped away. Money, in itself, did not fix me. It didn't magically heal the searing pain of betrayal or erase the deep emotional wounds, but it did grant me an invaluable second chance. And I utilized that chance not to seek retribution or to become someone new, but to painstakingly rediscover and become the man I used to be, before life's relentless grind wore me down to a mere shadow of myself. So if you find yourself listening to my story, and you too have been broken, if someone walked out on you or systematically took everything you believed defined you, I want you to grasp this undeniable truth. There is an unyielding, unbreakable part of you that can never truly be taken. That essential core of who you are is still there, waiting. You simply have to dig deep enough through the rubble and the pain to find it. And when you do, protect it fiercely. Build a new life around it, allowing it to lead you with unwavering certainty back home to yourself.